Hi. I'd like to tell you the stories of two different people. The first is a kid who grew up in Ottawa. In grade 6, he won a Math Achievement Award. Now, for a brown kid, winning a Math Achievement Award is like receiving a Nobel Prize in the field of the coolest thing to happen to a brown kid ever. This young mathlete had a bright future ahead of him. So what did he do? Nothing. In high school, he was voted most likely to fall asleep in class. He ate 23 Big Macs in a week. And he was a grade 14 graduate. That's right, 1-4. The office admins were so excited to see him off, they actually made him a special certificate. But wait, it gets worse. He had a strained relationship with his family. He took his friends for granted. His marriage failed. It's actually quite amazing how little you can accomplish when you never try. Go figure. He never tried. He didn't have any hopes or dreams. He just existed and was miserable. The second story is about a very different guy. He looked at the world and saw beauty and opportunities. In people, he saw their potential for greatness. In a photo of a bearded fellow dressed as a merman, he saw an opportunity to do a thing. So he did a thing. Like the Brown Avengers, he assembled a team. They produced a calendar of bearded fellows dressed as mermen. Yeah. The story went viral. News agencies everywhere picked it up. The merbuys were shipped all over the world. 14,000 copies sold, over $300,000 raised for a local mental health charity. They did a really cool thing. So who are these two people? And why should you care? Well, these are two very different people, but both of them are me. Hi, my name is Hasan. I used to be dead inside, but now I'm very much alive. 2013, it was winter in Newfoundland. I'd recently gone through a separation. I had no close connections with anyone, and I thought life couldn't possibly get worse. Then I accepted a job offer and decided to move to Saskatchewan. As I began my journey, I stopped in Ottawa for a few days to visit my parents. During that visit, something really profound happened. In their bathroom, I looked in the mirror and saw my reflection and hated that ugly stranger looking back at me. Now, I know this sounds made up, but it's true. My parents are actually right here and they can verify they do actually have a mirror in their bathroom. This is a real thing. I never imagined growing up that I'd become this person, yet here I was. Grade 14 grad, most likely to fall asleep in class, eater of way too many Big Macs. A lifetime of complacency was staring back at me. I had a decision to make. I could keep doing what I was doing and live the exact same life, or I could make a change and change that disappointing reflection looking back at me. So I decided I was going to be a different person. I was tired of being a passenger in my own unhappy, unfulfilling life. I started thinking about people in my life that I respected and admired. Basically, I decided to create Frankenstein's monster of taking bits and pieces of people that I liked, but not really harvesting body parts or organs that way. I started with my parents. I looked at their relationship. They were honest, kind, full of love. They respected one another. I was just a guy who was starting to believe that he could be something more than what he was. So with those seeds planted, I got on a plane and I continued on to Saskatchewan. There I was, in the land of the living skies, starting a new chapter in my life. I knew I wasn't satisfied with the person that I was, and I had work ahead of me. I needed to start with something small and achievable, something that a regular guy like me could actually do. Until that point, I'd spent much of my life looking down, literally not looking beyond the next step ahead of me. So I looked up, literally. I'd go for walks and I'd look at trees and buildings and beautiful street art, and I'd actually really notice them. When have you all actually really looked around you? Really looked? Did you notice the person sitting 4 seats to your left or to your right? Did you admire this beautiful building before you walked in and took your seats? One day, one gray, dreary day, I went out for a walk and saw this large puddle on the side of the road. So I stopped for a moment to look at it and noticed this reflection of a brilliant blue sky where the clouds are parting. Now, normally, I would have just walked past this ugly puddle on this ugly day and never noticed that. But that day, I looked at something ordinary and I saw something beautiful. I wondered what else had been right in front of me that I'd never noticed before. I had relationships that I had allowed to fade over time. I wasn't going to allow that anymore. I wanted better for myself. So I decided I was going to reconnect and pick up the pieces. My relationship with my parents was very strained. I called them to pick up the pieces. I'd start with telling my father I loved him. Now, he'd normally cough and hand the phone over to my mother then. So I said it to her twice. I love you. I love you. I had old friendships that I'd allowed to stagnate over time. I decided I would reach out to them. Hi, I was thinking of you. What's happening in your life? Change is hard, and sometimes it's weird. Often we never push the boundaries of what's comfortable for us, even though what we want and what we need is just outside of our reach. Outside of work, I didn't really know anyone in Regina. So when I saw an ad for the Regina Folk Festival and a call for volunteers, I figured, what the hell? I'll go see Blue Rodeo for free. So I did it. I volunteered. They issued us these standard volunteer shirts, and they encouraged us to decorate them and be creative. Now, I'm not a creative or artistic person at all, and I have terrible handwriting. In fact, my parents once put me in a special class, only to be told that I had bad handwriting. That was really it. So all of those reasons for not doing a thing, I pushed aside, and I went out and got the decorating supplies. I decorated the shirt. I got a lot of free hugs that weekend, I'll tell you that. Dozens of people came up to me. Some of them would walk by, they would open their arms. They maybe were a bit shy. They'd read the shirt once or twice, walk by again, eventually open their arms. Some would just grab me. It all worked. One fellow in particular came up to me with a huge grin on his face. He said, "Can I have a hug?" Sure. And he said, "I know you. I'm Jeff." And I realized I did recognize him. I knew him through social media. I'd never met him before. But here we are, sharing a hug. Now, Jeff and I are good friends now. He's one of the kindest, smartest, most hilarious people I know. I met Jeff because of a series of decisions to break from old patterns that were getting me nowhere to doing something new. I stepped outside my own comfort zone and I took a chance. It's the fall of 2015. It was announced that Syrian refugees were going to be coming into Canada for a new home, with no concrete plans of what was going to happen. A fellow I knew, we'll call him Niall O'Hanlon, that's actually his name, put out a Facebook post saying, "Let's help. We need clothing, we need furniture, all the things that new families need to get started." I didn't really know him that well, and in fact, I think that he thought my first name was Hay and my last name Fella. But I reached out to him, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to help. Where do I start?" And he said, "Meet me for lunch. Let's figure it out." So I did. Weeks of volunteering went by. Dozens of people got together, donating their time, their vehicles, their storage spaces. We filled warehouses with stuff, and we had to fill larger warehouses. I did a really cool thing with a great group of people. I made many new friends, and I think somewhere along the way, Niall figured out what my name was. So there I was, just a guy doing some things that were meaningful to me. The great thing was, I didn't have to be the most creative, the most ambitious sort. Someone else had those great ideas. I just needed the will to step a little bit outside of my comfort zone and join someone else in what they were doing. 2016 was the year it all came together. After a few years of commuting back and forth from Saskatchewan to Newfoundland to see my children, who I only saw a few times a year, I'd had enough. It was time to come home to them and be a full-time father. As I was packing and ready to move east, news broke that Fort McMurray was on fire. I didn't hesitate. I went to work. I reached out to some local businesses. We launched a donation drive and raised thousands of dollars in items and money, all to help the people, evacuees of Fort McMurray. After that, I filled my vehicle with stuff, drove to Edmonton, and volunteered with hundreds of other people, helping those displaced by the fires. There I was, doing things I had never imagined I'd ever be doing. A few weeks later, I packed my car again. My dog Lucy and I started the trek east to Newfoundland. Along the way, as it were, I'd stopped in Ottawa to visit my parents. As it happens, I ended up in their bathroom, looking in that same mirror. This time, I smiled at the person looking at me, and he smiled back, because that's how reflections work. They just, I saw a person I liked. I saw a person I never imagined I would be. You know who that was, though? It was just a regular guy. He's no different than anyone here. But he was happy. He was confident. He knew what tools he had, how to use them, and wasn't afraid to try. I don't want you to hang on to any of my stories, because honestly, they're only really important to me. We'll get there. Every one of you have your own hopes and dreams of the person you want to be and the things that you want to accomplish. Not everyone wants to hug a bunch of strangers, be a dark elf on a shelf, or cry when you look at a tree. Some of us do that. There's a few things I'd like you to remember as you walk away from this. One is to love yourself. Being dead inside doesn't get you very far, trust me. Don't stress how big your goal is. Break it down into small steps and celebrate your victories. At some point, you're going to look back and be amazed at how far you've come. You are an amazing battery full of incredible potential. Let no force on this earth stop you from achieving what you want to achieve. Decide on what your thing is, and then do that thing. Thank you.